Thank you.
Thank you very much, Al. Now, Harry Stoller will speak for the other side of the question with a statement which amplifies that side's position, and will hold himself in readiness, I hope, for challenge and question from the other side.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. It will be the objective of the affirmative team to now show that the advantages arising out of the lifting of the embargo on East-West trade would largely fall in the hands of the United States and her allies, and that the diplomatic dilemma thus presented to the Soviet Union would quell for all times the propaganda weapon used by the Soviets that she is a ready and eager market for Western goods, but that she is hindered in her attempt by the United States embargo on her doing so. Many of our allies today blame the United States for their economic ills, which they claim are caused by United States insistence upon a trade embargo of their traditional trade routes of east to west and west back to east. If, however, this embargo on trade were lifted, the nations of the West could see, as the U.S. News and World Report stated, that generally the policy of the Soviet Union is to hold down trade with its capitalistic competitors, not increase it, and further, that just the items that most of the Western nations wish to sell, such as textiles, appliances, and farm commodities, are just the products which the Soviet Union does not want, and further, that just the products which the Soviet Union does want, such as cables, ships, machinery for making petroleum and chemical products, are just the products which the Western nations do not wish to sell or are in short supply of themselves. Thus, after a realization of these facts come to Western leaders, perhaps there can be a greater period of harmony and understanding between the Western allies. Secondly, and perhaps most important, is the fact that a lifting of the embargo would put before the Soviets an unanswerable diplomatic dilemma. For if the Western world were to take the offensive against Russian propaganda and do away with her trade embargo, the Soviet Union would be put in the position of claiming to want Western goods, while her policy is directed to holding down this trade. Further, she would be put in the position that should she also lower her tariff barriers, her embargo, and accept this new trade, she would soon have a market flooded with Western consumer products.
You have 30 seconds, Harry.
Which would force her to adjust her economy from that of a war economy to that of a peacetime economy. So that we can see, perhaps paradoxically, that perhaps the easiest way to stop East-West trade would be to lower the embargo and allow that trade to take place. For then it would be the Soviets who would be forced to initiate an embargo and not the Western world.
Now we will hear an amplified statement from the other side, Daniel Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.